Good afternoon and welcome to our Lunch and Learn Travel Edition. My name is Dadra Driscoll. I am a silver consultant with Evolution Travel as well as an IATAN card holder. Today's training will be covering choosing trip vendors. I'm going to go through some information and then at the end we will answer questions. Feel free to use the chat box if you'd like to type in questions, and like I said, I will go over those at the end. Once this training is complete, I will post a link to the recording as well as where the note for the handout is as well, so that you can retrieve it. It will be in the comment section of the Facebook post that you saw about the training. So let's get started. We're going to be talking about choosing trip vendors. One of the most common questions that new agents post has to do with, well, what is the best vendor for this? Or I looked in Expedia and I didn't see what I was looking for. Or I went to Vax and that's all that I saw. So we're going to be doing this training today to give you some tips on how to expand your vendor listing, how to match vendors with the type of trip that your client needs, as well as some things that will just help you be a better travel agent overall, because you're going to start thinking about the whole process a little bit differently, hopefully, by the time we finish. So the first question is, do I have enough information? When your client calls you and tells you that they want to go on a trip, as a travel agent, you are the travel expert. You want to make sure that you stay on top of that conversation, that you're the one that's leading it and in control of it, and that you're not being passive and just taking whatever your client says and getting off the phone. You want to make sure that you get enough information in that initial qualifying conversation so that you, one, can go back and be really specific with your research, but two, so that you're not wasting time and having to keep going back and forth with your client. Now, there are different trainings available on how to qualify your client in the Travel Cafe and lots of other trainings on that. But I want to just focus in on making sure that that qualifying process is productive, because a lot of times people will say, oh, well, I did qualify my client, but they leave out some very key and important information. So I like to kind of go back to some of the basics that we learned a long time ago, the who, what, when, where, why, how, those kinds of questions. You want to get that information up front because you want to make sure that when you go to look, you have enough information to put together a quote. If someone calls you and just says, we want to go to XYZ place, well, who is we? Is it 2? Is it 4? Is it a group of 50? You want to know more information up front during that qualifying process, because that's going to help you narrow down the right vendors. It's going to help you narrow down how to put the quote together, how to get an accurate quote. Because contrary to popular belief, in general, people know where they want to go. They just don't always tell you as the travel agent. So another thing, in addition to valuing your time, you want to make sure that you're not letting people treat you like you're their personal Google. If they're at this point where they think that they might take a trip someday somewhere, that's not a job for a travel agent. You need to find out when you're talking with them, when is it that you're planning to take this trip? Are you prepared to put a deposit down? Once I get a quote, that price is only valid, at the time of the quote. So we want to make sure you're able to take advantage of the deals I find for you. Because again, if they say, oh, well, no, I'm not going to be booking for another 3 months, that's going to help you make a decision about how you should proceed with that. Because again, you don't want people just calling you to research 25 trips and they're not booking anything. You are not their personal Google. And it is okay for you to tell them to get back with their friends and have a discussion and narrow down and figure out what they want to do and then give you a call. As a professional travel agent, there is nothing wrong with you saying that to your client. So again, you don't want to become the personal Google. Then you also want to know, have they done any research on this trip before? And if so, where or with whom? because often people will try and use you to pit your quote against someone else. And if that's the case, you need to know that up front. Because again, if you're competing with another travel agency or some website, something they saw, if you want to get into that cycle, you want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. Two, you want to make sure that you're, again, not just wasting your time. Now, a lot of new agents are uncomfortable with charging research fees or booking fees or things like that. However, these are those kind of situations where that makes sense, and you need to know what you're doing, because again, if I'm trying to match or beat someone else's quote, give me their quote and let me see what I can give you back. Don't just have me blindly running all around. Again, this is travel agent to travel agent talk. I want you to look at it a little bit differently so that you can make sure that you are taking advantage of the opportunity and that you're not wasting your time. One of the bigger frustrations that new agents have is that they feel they're wasting their time because they're doing all of these quotes and not actually doing any bookings. So ask the right questions up front. Qualify your client. Get enough information. Then secondly, present yourself as the travel expert. When you're talking to your client, if you sound like you really don't know what's going on, you're kind of tentative, they are going to feed off of that. You want to sound like the one who's the most knowledgeable about travel on the call between you and your client. So it's going to be important for you to understand things like geography. So I laugh because I'm going to do a little role play a little bit. I want someone or some of you to jump in the chat box for me, because I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to tell me kind of what you think about it or what's wrong with it. So I'm calling you as a travel client and I say, I want to take a vacation to the United States. Is there anything wrong with me saying that to you? What do you think as a travel agent if I were to say to you, I want to take a vacation to the United States? Okay, Lisa says she needs more information. You need to know what state within and when. Again, think about that. Now, we understand that because we are primarily, most of us on the line, I'm going to assume, are US citizens. So it sounds kind of strange for me to say I want to go to the United States. There's 50 possible states and unlimited number of cities within those states. However, one of the most common things that I see in terms of questions where someone has talked to their client and then they jump in a Q&A and they're asking, my client wants to go to Jamaica. That is not enough information. Jamaica is a country. So just as you think it would be kind of silly for someone to tell you, oh, I want to go on a vacation to the United States, you need to understand enough about geography that you guide the conversation like a travel expert. If your client says, I want to go to Jamaica, then you need more information to help them narrow down where in Jamaica they want to go. As you understand and learn more about destinations, Negril and Ocho Rios, Montego Bay, all have very different types of feels and vibes. They have different types of resorts, different types of activities. And although you can crisscross and go between different things, you need more information from your client in order to be able to give them the proper quote. I can't give you a quote to Jamaica. I can give you a quote to Ocho Rios. I can give you a quote to Montego Bay. I can give you a quote to Negril. And so we need to have a little more conversation so that I can match the right location with you. And so again, as a travel expert, it's going to be on you to learn a little more about geography so you don't let people just send you out there. Because if you go that route, and we're going to look at some samples, we're going to Google and do some things in this training to show you why that can be frustrating to you. But I'm pointing it out to you up front, so while you're in that initial conversation, you're narrowing it down. Because often your client doesn't know, they just heard that a friend of theirs went to Jamaica and had a great time. They were living it up. So you need to find out, well, where did your friend go? What did they do? Oh, well, they climbed a waterfall. Oh, so they went to Dunn's River Falls in Ocho Rios. Again, you need to start learning more about geography so that when you're talking to and qualifying your client, you can get information that makes sense and you come off as the travel expert in the conversation. Another really popular question and place that it's a geography issue is the wonderful state of Hawaii. Well, guess what? There are several islands in Hawaii. So if someone says, oh, I want to go to Hawaii, you need to qualify them a little bit more. You need to figure out what type of experience they want to have so that you can match them with the right island. Oahu it's very touristy and it's got a lot of great history and things to do, and it's a more hustle and bustle on a lot of that island. Maybe they want to go to Kauai or Maui because they want something a little more laid back. You need to figure out what kind of experience they want so you can match them with the right place. So again, when we started with our first sample and I just said, oh, I want to go to the US, you all quickly figured out that's not enough information. But sometimes we're not as quick to do that when it comes to a place we've never been or a foreign country, simply because we're not as comfortable with the geography. And so it's going to be important that you come off as the travel expert. Now, when you don't know, again, you still want to get as much information while you have your client on the line. You're going to ask that, what type of experience do you want? Are you looking for something romantic? Are you wanting something active? Do you want to skydive? Do you want to water ski? Ask questions so that you can frame out what kind of experience they want. That information will help you then match them with the proper property and which vendor can give them what they want. Then you want to leverage your resources so that you maintain that professional posture. Even if you don't know, remember you have Archer Travel, you have 7,000 other agents in Evo, you have help at your disposal that can help you, but you've got to get as much information up front so that someone can even help you afterwards. So while you're getting started, ask the right questions. Do I have enough information? Think to yourself, when I hang up, does my next contact with them, is it going to be a quote or a question? You want to make sure you get enough information up front that your next connection with your client can be the quote and not to keep going back and forth asking a bunch of questions. So now, let's talk about Googling destinations and vendors, because one of the most common phrases you're going to hear from any of the trainers who answer questions in the Q&A is make Google your best friend. You're going to hear us say or ask, did you Google it? And that's a phrase that we're going to use because, again, we want to make sure you put in the work. But what does that really mean practically? So the first thing I'm going to talk about, so we're going to flip back and forth because I'm actually going to go online and we're going to look at a search and we're going to work through it on the topic of Googling destinations and vendors. The first thing I want to address is the quote unquote best vendor myth. There is no universal best vendor because every client's needs are different. Where they want to go, what they want to do is going to vary. And so certain properties pride themselves on being a certain thing. So that vendor might be the best for a romantic getaway or a luxury getaway. But if your client wants a party atmosphere, then that luxury, quiet butler service suite overlooking the ocean may not be the right vendor. There's nothing wrong with that vendor. They're just not the right vendor for your particular client. And so you've got to start understanding that so that even if you're asking someone for asking questions and asking for help, you're providing enough information that someone can help you. No one knows your client better than you because you're the one that talked to them. There's no cookie cutter approach or cookie cutter answer to that. So we've got to know more about what your client wants so that you then can match it with the right atmosphere, with the right vendor to know where to send your client. So save yourself. Don't jump in a Q&A box and say, what's the best vendor for because that answer is very subjective. It may depend on the age of your client. Is it a family group? Is it a singles group? Is it a married couple? Is it a multi-generational group traveling? All of these are things that can help impact the answer. Also, when you type in to Google for a trip, you're going to use those results as a guide, not as your final answer. So like I said, we're going to actually go to a live search in just a moment, but I would want to make sure I don't skip any of these points first. You want to pay attention to the type of websites that come up in the search. You want to be specific in your wording of your search. And you want to use these vendors as the point of reference to begin your research process. So now let's skip over and let's pull up Google. So here, for the sake of time, I already put in best all-inclusive resort in Jamaica. Now, as we mentioned in our little sample earlier, Jamaica, that's a bad search. Because again, Jamaica is a country. When we start clicking on some of these links, we're going to see resorts all across the country. So that's going to not be as helpful, and it's going to take us longer to get where we're needing to go because it may impact what's the correct airport to fly into. It's going to impact transportation costs depending on where they are. But because this is one of the most common searches that people use, I use it for an example because we're going to see a lot of very key things just by looking at this. So the first thing you're going to notice here, these first two have the word add right in front of them. That means that these particular vendors, these particular companies paid money to be the first thing that you see in a Google search. That could be good, that could be bad, but you need to understand that. Vacation Express invested money in ad space to make sure they are the first thing that you see because they want you to consider them when booking your Jamaica trip. TripAdvisor is up here, there, right at the top, first thing you see, because most people don't like to scroll. So they've paid for that positioning. As we scroll down here, as you can see, if you look at the country of Jamaica, this list has prices all over the country. That may not help you because it's not narrowed down to a specific destination. So as we scroll down here, as I mentioned, when you're Googling, you want to understand the types of sites that you're looking at. TripAdvisor, for instance, although TripAdvisor is also a retail travel agency booking engine, they also pride themselves on being an area where the actual travelers give reviews. So when I click here on TripAdvisor, there are a couple different things you need to know. In this particular search, TripAdvisor, as a travel agency, is trying to get someone to book through them. So they're going to list all sorts of prices that people can book. They're going to get a kickback just like you would if you did it. They're going to get a commission payout. But another thing that TripAdvisor is really known for and good for is having up-to-date traveler reviews. So here next to the Hyatt, these are some different reviews. It says that according to their reviews, this particular hotel was #1 best value. Now, best value is subjective. It's based on different comments that were made by the people who actually took the time to post reviews. This can be good if you want to see what people think about the particular place you're sending your client. But again, people's opinions are just that, they're opinions. But it's always good because it's going to be listed chronologically. So if there is construction going on there right now, and someone complained that when they went last week, they couldn't enjoy themselves because of all of the construction noise, that may be something that you need to know if you're planning to send your client there. But you want to note the difference between a customer review or an industry review, or is it an advertisement? Now, also in the case of the term all-inclusive, as a travel agent, when your client says, oh, I want all-inclusive, you need to ask more questions. Do they mean that they want a resort that's going to include all of their meals, their drinks, their non-motorized water sports, which is the formal and traditional definition of an all-inclusive resort? Or do they mean that they want everything in the package? Because a lot of clients use the term all-inclusive simply to mean, I want you to get my flight, get my hotel, get my transfers or transportation. I want you to get my excursions or shows. I just want to pay you once and you take care of everything. And for some clients, when they say all-inclusive, that's really what they mean. You need to understand what their expectation is so that you, as the travel expert, can meet that expectation. Because especially in reviews like this, ones that are written by just other regular people, you're going to hear the term all-inclusive. This simply means that someone used the phrase all-inclusive in their review. Doesn't mean that the resort necessarily specifically is or isn't one, but it means that in someone's personal review, they use the phrase all-inclusive. So as you look here, Round Hill Hotel and Villas, this was an all-inclusive plan. So this is not necessarily, they may have purchased a meal plan that includes certain meals. A traditional all-inclusive, by definition, is going to mean they can do all they want to eat and drink. If it's a meal plan that's added in, it may not be all meals. It may be 3 meals. So you want to make sure you're paying attention and not using this general heading of all-inclusive to be the end of your research. So again, these are different things that were listed, and this is what different clients who went there, travelers, had to say. This is a travel agent customer review website. I'm going to go back to our list. So as we come down here, now here where it says 9 best all-inclusive resorts, this is a magazine. Jet Setter magazine lists, and they're going to list it according to things that they think are important. So as you're reading here, it's going to tell you more detailed information. 6 restaurants here, 407 rooms and suites. So again, as you're understanding the type of website, it'll make more sense. So this is a magazine, and so they're looking at it from a different perspective. The wording in here is a lot less subjective because, again, they're trying to compare apples to apples. This is a particular type of website, a little more upscale, so they're reviewing things that are more high-end. So again, you want to know what kind of website. You want to understand the rating system because all rating systems are not alike. As we mentioned on TripAdvisor, TripAdvisor is based on customer reviews. If you're looking at an industry, like when we talk about what is a 4-star or a 5-star or a 5 diamond, those are more industry standard ratings. So you want to understand the difference so that you're using not only reputable sources, but that you're comparing things based on what matters to your particular client. So when we look at searches like this in Google, you want to try and narrow down your search to make it more specific to what matters for you. So here are some other related searches. People have put down best all-inclusive resorts in Jamaica for families, adults only, Montego Bay, luxury resorts. Again, you want to be able to make your search make sense. So if they're doing a girls trip, you may want to search girls trip if you want to get reviews from other groups of women who did a trip. If it's honeymoons, you may want to include that so that you can get reviews from other couples who were on their honeymoon. Again, how you set your search is going to be really important. So when you understand what type of travel, you want to make sure that you ask the right questions. So Google is basically a Q&A. If I want to search something in Google, I need to tell Google what I want to know. If I want to know about ski resorts then my search needs to say ski resorts. If I want to know about cruises, then I need to ask it about cruises, but not just cruises generically. Is it a Caribbean cruise? Is it a Mediterranean cruise? Is it a South American cruise? What type of cruise? Do I want a large cruise ship, small cruise ship? Do I want a river cruise? How you word what you put in Google is going to be really important because it's going to help narrow down your search. However, when it comes to, I did have a question about cruising and I'm going to touch it and we can talk more about it later, but understanding the type of trip is going to be really important. Google may not be your best option when it comes to cruising unless your question is, what vendors do that? We've got different vendors that you can search cruises within the vendor, and we're going to touch on that on another slide. So when I'm searching cruises, I don't Google cruises. I go to a cruise portal and search cruises because it's going to be much more specific to what I need. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. So as we go back, again, as I mentioned, it's important that when you're Googling that you're specific in your wording and that you use your vendors as a point of reference to begin. So now if I look through those searches and I saw a particular vendor's name, I think I want to use that vendor. Now I know to go to my tools and figure out where to book that vendor. If I wanted that Hyatt resort that I saw, or I wanted sandals, now I can go to the travel cafe and search for vendors. So we're going to talk about searching the travel cafe. This is one of your tools as a travel agent, and it is invaluable and tremendously underused. Once you have an idea, or even if you're trying to just get some direction, the travel cafe is going to help you. And again, we're going to switch back over to it live in just a moment, but you want to familiarize yourself with the menu and format of the travel cafe. You want to type your destinations or vendors into the search bar so that you can gain recommendations from Archer Travel. Then you want to follow the instructions in the listing regarding how to register with the vendor, because it's great that you saw on Google that a particular property looks or sounds like what you want, but if you're not registered and you don't book them the proper way, you're not going to get your commission. You don't want to click on a retail site and book a trip and expect to get your travel agent commission. So when I say that, I'm mentioning that because, again, we're about to switch over to the travel cafe, but you want to make sure that you pay attention and follow the instructions and get registered properly with the tool that you're using to book that vendor. So let's go to the travel cafe. Here is our wonderful Evolution Travel Cafe. On our particular menu here, if you come down to supplier info, there is a menu. You can search suppliers by destination. You can search suppliers by the type of trip. So here, vacation packages, cruises, air, hotel, activities, rail. The Travel Cafe is amazing. Again, you can click here and find all sorts of things without even having to go to Google. But you can come here under supplier information and search based on the type of trip you're looking for. You also can come here at the top into the search bar and type in a particular destination or what you're looking for. So two different ways to get to the same place. Here, there's suppliers is in the top list here. That's a third way that you can access supplier information. So when you click on any of these options, so let's say that you're trying to find a supplier to a particular destination. When you click suppliers by destination, we've got a list. You can pick where they're going. Okay, if they're going to Mexico and the Caribbean, alphabetical list, all sorts of different vendors. You can click on those vendors, get more information on them. It will also tell you how to register with them. Great tool. You want to know about a particular place, you can type it in. So as you can see, these are some previous searches that I've done, but if you want to know about Jamaica. Okay, am I spelling wrong? Sorry. We're going to come in and go right back because I think I spelled it wrong. Let me also help you with this one. Vacation packages. For the sake of time, here are vendors who do vacation packages. Africa, American Airlines, Avanti. This is an alphabetical list. So as you click through the various pages, you can get down to who you're looking for. But when you find one, you click on its name, and it's going to open up to a description about that vendor. It's going to tell you how to book them. So in the case here of Club Med, we have to call Club Med directly at this number to book them and reference the Archer Travel IATA number. Quick and easy, very simple. So again, when you understand how to find these things, it's even better than Googling because you're going to get the specific information you need. Now, when you're registering with them, you want to make sure that you register with Archer's IATA number. That's how that vendor will know to send your travel commission back to Archer. You're not registering as an individual, you're registering as an agent whose host agency is Archer Travel. Also, when you're here in the Travel Cafe, if you'll notice to the right where it says info for vendors, this is going to be kind of your holy grail. I always inform all of my new agents to create a contact in their phone and put all of this information here for Archer Travel. So that way I don't have to log into the Travel Cafe every time. I can just pull it up. Because I've been booking for a while, I have memorized the IATA number. I don't have to look it up. But for those of you that are new, you want to have it there in your phone. You want the Archer Travel phone number in your phone in case you need to call them. So again, set up that contact, put that information in there so that you can always have it at your fingertips. But when you're registering, you want to make sure that you pay attention to these things and you get signed up for the vendor, or that you book through the vendor the way that you need to in order to ensure that you get paid. Now, some vendors are going to require that you have to submit a supplier request form. So under forms here in the Travel Cafe, when you click on forms, you are going to see the supplier request form. When you click on that and submit it, it will go to Archer Travel. Generally takes about 48 business days, not 48 days, 48 hours for you to get that response back. If you don't get it, don't jump in a Q&A box asking other agents. Call Archer Travel. This Travel Cafe is managed by Archer Travel. The information you submit goes to Archer Travel. So if you've got problems with you didn't receive something back, or you're having trouble getting registered, or any of those kinds of things, those are questions you need to call and ask Archer Travel. There's a staff there, they're friendly, they want to answer questions for you. So with that being said, we're going to move on to our next point. So we've worked through the Travel Cafe. Now let's talk about choosing trip vendors. Generally, when folks first get started, you're learning Expedia Tap, you're learning VAX, they are great first go-tos. But the more knowledgeable you become and the more experience you get, you can branch out and use other vendors. It just depends on what your client is looking for. The two that we listed, the two main ones like Expedia Tap and VAX, are not your only options. And let me pause while I mention VAX, because often people will respond, I looked in VAX. Within VAX, there are like 12 different or more, I don't know, I didn't actually literally count it, but there's an entire list of options. It defaults to FunJet, but you've got Southwest, you've got American, you've got United, you've got Universal, you've got, I mean, there's all sorts of things if you click on that little drop down. So even within VAX, you have multiple options, not just FunJet. So you want to consider the type of trip that your client wants. Do they want a vacation package? Do they want a land tour? Do they want a cruise? Are they luxury clients versus economy clients? Do they want a safari? Do they want religious travel? That's going to help you pick the right vendor. You can utilize the search box inside of the Evolution Facebook groups first before you answer a question. There's an actual search box where you can type it in and see, because most questions have been asked at least 500 times. So you can find answers much quicker than posting a question and waiting for people to give you answers. And then also taking it with a grain of salt, because not everyone who answers questions knows all of the answers. They just want to be helpful. But again, you can search those groups by typing into the search box. So we're going to talk about some other vendors. I put some things here on the screen just as examples, not to say that these are even all of them, but they want a land tour. We've got groups like Trafalgar, Globus, Monograms, GoAid, where they will put together a trip for your client. Maybe your client wants to go to Europe and they want to visit multiple places. You can put together a trip with one of these vendors and it'll pull it all together for you, and they will have tour guides and things like that. There's different levels. If you want one that's got a whole lot of programming, one that's more freestyle, there are different vendors that can put that package together for you. If you're doing just regular vacation packages, we've got Pleasant Holidays, Vacation Express, a lot of companies that'll put those packages together for you, give you competitive prices and other things of that nature. When I mentioned asking your client if they've researched, I had a client say, oh, well, I looked on Cheap Caribbean, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? You can register as a travel agent with Cheap Caribbean. I gave a client the exact same trip they had researched for themselves, because I just went to the vendor that they looked at as a travel agent and booked it as a travel agent. And I got commission for the same price trip that they had researched for themselves. I noted up here, up at the top, Cruise Pro. And I know, as I mentioned earlier, someone asked a question about cruising. Now, one of the things I want to say, Cheap Caribbean does pay commission if you're registered as a travel agent. They don't pay commission if you're on the public site. So they do have a separate site. But when I put these things out there, I'm mentioning to you, you want to make sure that you know what your tools do. If your client tells you they want to take a cruise to a specific destination, but you don't really know what cruise line they want, or they want to know which cruise lines are going to a particular destination at a certain time of the year, using Cruise Pro, which is within Agent Universe, is a good tool to use. When you click on there, you can give a date range and a destination, and it will pull up all of the itineraries going to that destination in that date range, and you can click and compare itineraries, you can compare prices right from one site. Again, so it depends on what your client needs and what you're trying to figure out. Now, if you also learn about the different cruise lines, you can also match your client to the right cruise line for their cruising personality. Carnival's known as the fun ship. Royal Caribbean is known for being an adventure line. You've got Norwegian, which is freestyle cruising. Then you've got luxury cruise lines like Crystal, Silver Sea, you've got Princess and Cunard. You've got different cruise personalities for different cruise lines. So when you match your client to the right cruise, if you've got a group of really young party-oriented clients, you might not want to put them on a princess cruise, because their demographic is generally a little bit older. It's more settled and laid back. I'm going to give an example, a personal one. I completed my Princess Commodore training, and when I took my free cruise, I brought along with me my sponsor, the 4-foot assassin, Lynn Huddleston. So for any of you who know her, you know she is high energy, super party, and her favorite cruise line is Carnival, the fun ship. When we first stepped onto the ship, there was a string quartet in the lobby there playing, and Lynn's first response, she's like, did we just get on the Titanic? And we laughed about it, but it wasn't that it was anything wrong with the cruise ship or that, but that was the personality of the Princess cruise we took. Now, when you first step onto the Carnival ship, you may be stepping onto the deck party where they're going to have the hairy chest man contest. Totally different spirits. Not that one is bad or one is good, they're just different. So it's going to be important for you to choose the right vendor that matches your client. And I say that because, again, Carnival is wonderful when you want to have a good time. They're filled with activities always going on and contests. They're pulling you up on stage to participate in something. They're throwing giveaways out into the crowd because that's Carnival's personality. They're the fun ship. But again, on the Princess ship, it was a totally different thing. We went to an art auction. It was a lot more cultured and a totally different vibe. I loved it. I love classical music. But again, it just depends on your client's personality. So when you're comparing, you may be looking for a specific type of itinerary. So if you use something that's going to help you compare itineraries, Cruise Pro is a much easier way to go because, again, you can pull it up all at one time and just click through, see the dates, see the prices, see the itinerary, and know what your options are. But again, that's just knowing the different types of vendors. So let's go take a look at a few things. Because as a travel agent, some of the things you want to consider, let me come here, I'm going to close out of the travel cafe. So I mentioned different vendors for different things. ETS is one of our vendors that does faith-based travel. One of the nice things about ETS, for instance, is if you've got a couple or a church group that wants to do a Holy Land tour, for instance, you can look that up here with ETS. They have lots of pre-planned trips where you can take people and add them into already existing groups. Let's say it's a small church and they don't have enough people who are able to jump into a full big group tour, but they want to go. You can take them and add them into an already existing date. They can make payments and then go have that Holy Land experience. But again, it's all about knowing options. When you check under Find a Trip, now I'm not logged in right now as a travel agent, but they do have a travel agent login. For the sake of time, I think it kicked me out from when I first logged in. But registering with ETS, their information is there in the travel cafe. You can sign up with them. I've actually spoken with them. I'm in the process of working on a Holy Land tour for a group. But again, they're an option. Here's another one we're going to look at. So let me see here if I can click over. Vacation Express. Now, in registering with Vacation Express as a travel agent, they are going to send you emails multiple times a week with specials. So all of these little graphics that you see rotating through the image here, they're going to send them to you in an email. Makes it very easy to mark it on your website so you can copy the image, make your post, great deals. You can register with Vacation Express based on the destination or the departure airports that are closest to you, and then have pre-made graphics. Now, I like that about Vacation Express because they are always going to send you something. I like registering with them. They come here to the Detroit area multiple times a year. They have wonderful live events and great giveaways. So I can basically get the same kind of experience with Vacation Express that I could with some of the vendors that you may find in VAX. You can get very similar pricing. Vacation Express also has a travel agent program. So when you're going through things with them as a travel agent, you can earn points and benefits from Vacation Express if you book your groups and things like that. So again, if I book with Vacation Express, I can get the similar price that I saw somewhere else, but I also can get a free flight, or I may be able to get a resort room. So it might be more beneficial for me to book some clients with Vacation Express because I'm going to give them the same, I'm going to give them the exact same experience, same trip, but it's going to benefit me as the travel agent. So you want to pay attention to little things like that. Are there other benefits I can be leveraging by using different vendors? Some vendors, when you book, they also have those travel agent loyalty and reward programs. So you want to pay attention to things like that so that you can also get your information logged in there and get points and, like I said, benefits. One of the ones we looked at was Globus. Now they do land tours. So as I mentioned, your client may want to go to Europe and go to multiple places. You can type in a destination and then type in a date. Let's say they want to go next year, and we're going to hit search. And they're going to give you some options. Now this helped. I had a particular client, and the thing that we did with them, we have other options there. And the client wanted to go to Paris. So when I searched for Paris, now I'm hoping it hasn't logged me out because I've been sitting for a little bit. But when the client wanted to go to Paris, I found a comparable trip that did both Paris, London, and Rome simply by doing this particular search. So let me see. So as you can see here, it's going to give us different options. It's going to show dates of travel, how long the trip is. You can click here. It's going to give you overviews of the trip. So now this one's London and Paris. These are trips throughout Europe, Paris and Rome. Again, it'll give you lots of different options. Now under the Globus family of brands, they have Cosmos, which is affordable touring. They have Avalon Waterways, which are river cruises. They also have Monograms, which are vacation packages. So again, as you just look at different vendors, you're going to be able to see different information. Maybe they had not considered doing a river cruise, or maybe you can offer them a package that's going to give them more things. But again, as you look at your different vendors, you can put together similar or the exact same kind of trip with multiple vendors. So the same process that we looked at, you can book here. We mentioned we were with Vacation Express. You can put together flight and hotel packages, ground transportation. We even have vendors where you can do excursions. So if your client is taking a cruise, why not book their excursions for them? So here's an example of a cruise. I've got some people going on this particular cruise. Using the Shore Excursion Group, I can register with them as a travel agent. I can pre-book excursions for them and earn commission. If they're going to wait and they're going to book on the cruise line, they're not going to give me a commission off of that excursion. But I can offer the same type of excursion. Here I can search by destination. So let's say, what do they have available for Grand Cayman? It's going to show me all of the different ones. I can click on details. So this is going to help you. But again, when you register with different types of vendors, other than just the main ones, now again, you can also book different types of things under activities in Expedia tab. You can book things under features in VAX. But again, if they're going on a cruise, this particular website is going to already be coordinated with the timing for the cruise. So when you book someone on an excursion here, they will be sure to make sure that your client is back to the ship by the time they need to be there, because you're going to already have entered in the ship, the particular time that they're there, what the itinerary is. And so these are pre-approved excursions that fit within the time frame that the client would be in shore, or in port rather. So again, these are just different options for you to consider, because when you're booking travel, our goal is to make money. So you don't want to leave any money on the table. If there is an ability for you to make money off of what your client is going to do, why not do that? We've got Viator, we've got Shore Excursion Group, others like that. You just want to pay attention to those things so that you're taking full advantage of the benefits. You want to understand which vendors are going to require full payment up front, which ones will allow you to offer a payment plan to the client. And I noted that there just because a lot of times new agents assume payment plan, quote unquote, means that they have to have something that's monitored and arranged by the vendor. You're the travel agent, so you can post the payments. If you've booked the trip and the deposit is due in April and the final payment is due in December, you have the ability to be flexible there and perhaps give them a payment once a month or once every other month until they pay it off, and you post the payments to that vendor yourself. Now, if they're traveling in April and you're booking the trip today, you're not going to be able to offer them a payment plan. But that comes in you understanding how the vendors and payment plans work. So you want to pay attention to that. When you're choosing a vendor, you want to consider their respective commission structures. When I was showing you those different vendors, sometimes you can get a better commission rate by changing the vendor. You want to make sure that when you're looking at, say for instance, a car rental, if it's a car rental only, if you go into Expedia, car rentals, off the top of my head, I'm thinking they're like around 6% or so. But guess what? If I go directly to the vendors, for instance, if I go to Enterprise, to their travel agent portal, I can book that same car rental at 10% commission. 6%, 10%. It's a little extra. Every penny counts. So you want to pay attention to that when you're choosing trip vendors, not just defaulting to the top two or three, but also making strategic decisions so that it benefits you. Then you also want to research individual vendor loyalty and rewards programs, as I mentioned before, because again, even if you do book in VAX, for instance, or if you book with Vacation Express, if I book, for instance, a REU property, I can still put that reservation in my REU account as a specialist and earn points and benefits from REU. Now, let's talk about double dipping. I mentioned with Vacation Express, they have a special that if you book certain things, you can get things from them. So you could take bookings and earn twice. You could earn from the Vacation Express loyalty program and from the REU loyalty program. So again, it's about being smart and understanding which one to use. So as we go through all of this, again, I mentioned at the top of the call, every Lunch and Learn is recorded and posted. So you want to make sure once we're done, we will be posting it and the links will be in the original post that you went to on Facebook. It's on the webpage. So yes, everything will be posted as well as the handout. So when you're researching, again, pay attention. Don't leave anything on the table. If there are points, rewards, free trips, free hotel stays, a t-shirt and a cup, whatever you can get everything that's entitled to you as a travel agent. So I want to thank each and every one of you for jumping on the line and just realize that there's several ways to book any trip. Once you found it with a particular vendor and you're going to compare it to other vendors that are going to give you the best out of it as well as your client. If everything from the client experience side is the same, make sure that you also get the best commission for yourself. Because as a travel agent, you want to get what you can while you're doing the booking and not do any extra work for it. So pay attention, read the fine print, register for those loyalty programs and take advantage of those, and you'll have a great experience. So we're going to be posting this later today. The links are going to be there in the comments. So I thank you. So I'm going to stop the recording at this point, and I will stay on for any questions that any of you may have.